The code boss.
There we go. Thank you. Thank you. All right. I'm going to be talking today about using Terraform, Packer, and Ansible together. Has anyone used any of these tools at all? Awesome. Awesome. So before I get into anything, I've got a couple shirts here. One of them I'm reserving for whoever tells the first joke. So, first good joke, we'll say. But the other two I want to throw out right now, and they're all different. I should probably talk about my company, though, so you actually know what these shirts are. That's me, the code boss. I work for a company called Clevyr, and Mike works for Clevyr as well. We are a consulting software engineering shop here locally. We've been around since 2009, so about 9 years at this point. We do web applications, mobile applications, any kind of software stuff that you or your company needs, we do. We work with a lot of local companies. We work with some national companies too. It's fun. We don't limit ourselves to a certain tech stack. It's, we use modern technology, but whatever the job calls for is what we're doing. That's kind of why I want to give this talk today, as I recently got into learning about Ansible, Packer, and Terraform. I'm a noob at all of it, so we'll get into that later. But I wanted to explore these so we can actually use them. In addition to Clevyr, though, I also work at a company called Clevyr Labs. Everyone at Clevyr also works at Clevyr Labs, and that's what this shirt is. Bam, Clevyr Labs. You don't get a shirt for this one, but does anyone know what Clevyr Labs does? Has anyone heard of Clevyr Labs? So Clevyr Labs focuses strictly on virtual reality and augmented reality applications. A lot of it's games right now, but we're breaking the mold on that. We're doing some work for some clients that have virtual reality needs that aren't game-driven. Even the back of our business cards have got some cool AR on it. So if you scan our phone with it, you can see a cool animation, and I can show that after this talk. Clevyr Labs has been around for less than a year, though. About last July, I want to say, is when we started it. I guess 10-ish months at this point, 9 months. So that's what we do at Clevyr in Clevyr Labs. So now I can throw the shirts. Who can tell me? We got 3 tools here. Can anyone give me just a brief introduction of what 2 of these tools are? And you get a shirt. Yes.
All right. So Terraform generates, or you use it to generate your IaaS. I don't know what kind of definitions you want.
No. You're broad is perfect.
All right. Packer can build AMIs for you. They can build other types of things like that. Ansible.
Oh, no, don't answer that one. Just 2 of them. Just 2 of them. Boom, you got it. All righty, I'm going to throw one at you. If it's the wrong size, let me know. And you're going to need to watch that one now. If it's the wrong size, let me know, and we'll make it right. Okay, so in a nutshell, Terraform is what generates the things, spins them up. Packer is what builds the things. Super vague. We're going to get into what that means more specifically, but wonderful definition. So you're about to explain Ansible. But I want to give someone else a chance for the remaining tool, which is Ansible. Does anyone want to? You get a shirt if you can answer this one. Yes.
It's a tool used for provisioning servers, so installing whatever sort of tool you might need for build deploy or anything else you could possibly imagine.
There you go. Same thing. Same thing. If it's the wrong size, let me know. So Ansible is a tool for provisioning servers, configuring servers, everything on the server itself. The caveat is the server has to exist and you have to have access to it first, which Terraform Packer can help with. So, got one shirt left. We'll reserve that for a joke later. So our plan today, this is going to be a very interactive thing. We're going to build the DigitalOcean snapshot on my DigitalOcean account. Using Packer. So Packer is the tool that's going to actually generate the snapshot. It's going to be configured with Ansible. We're going to actually run this. I've got the code for it already. There's going to be a project that we're going to run. We're going to get it all configured with Ansible on this snapshot. And then we're going to deploy an actual droplet right here using Terraform. So none of this is going to be, we're not going to have to do any manual server configuration. It's all code first right here. So we're going to step through that, and then we're going to actually see this happening. So, I know, it's crazy. We're gonna do it all with code. So let's do a demo. And this is gonna be the most of the talk. What we're gonna be doing, you can see I'm logged into my DigitalOcean account here. We're gonna create a droplet here. I've got one, that's my main one. What we're gonna do is we're gonna deploy a droplet that runs a website. And it's a website that is very near and dear to my heart. And something that you may not know is that today is actually a holiday, as it is every Friday. It's a holiday called Growler Friday. So if anyone here is a craft beer fan, then you may be familiar with what a growler is. It's just a 64-ounce vessel of beer that you get from a brewery. But there's a beautiful website you can go to called growlerfriday.com, which explains everything. But every Friday at work at Clevyr, we celebrate Growler Friday the right way, which is we get a growler on the afternoon and just hang out for 30 minutes or so. And I want to share this tradition with you guys. So we're going to actually build this project. It's a simple static, it's a static static file site. So just using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And we're going to run that on this droplet automatically. We're going to configure it with Ansible. To do that, though, we're going to need Nginx or some other web server. We're going with Nginx. We're going to use Git to actually download the project, because this is just on my public GitHub. And I think that may be the core things. We also are going to have to obviously create a root user, get access to the server, etc. So we're going to build this thing, but we're going to actually run it on our droplet, or the new droplet we create. So let's get into it. If anyone has any questions about anything, feel free to ask me at all times, and I will redirect them to someone else who, I'll answer them as best as I can. But honestly, this talk is kind of an add-on to last month's talk, where Paul Dawson, who's not here today, gave a talk about Packer, and I didn't know anything about Packer. I didn't really know anything about Terraform, or even Ansible at that time, so I wanted to dig into it and learn more. So that's kind of what this talk is all about. So if you have an idea of something you want to give a talk about but don't know much about, just the Nike slogan is right. Just do it. Just do it. And that's the best way to learn. So here is the project right here. Can everyone see? Is this zoomed in enough in the back? Okay. Perfect. So don't worry about the images directory here. That's images for the directory, hence that mind-blown picture and the clever images. Same with presentation and send. Those are all presentation files. The directories we want to care about are Ansible, Packer, and Terraform. And that first thing in the plan is we're going to use Packer to create a DigitalOcean snapshot. So let's dig into what that actually looks like. With Packer, you start off with a template, which is a JSON file. And these can get as hairy as you want them to get, or they can get as simple as you want them to get. So I'm going to go to the very top of this file. And it may look crazy right now, but I promise you I'm just going to scroll down a little bit, and bam, we're at the end of it. This one's super simple, and it can be even simpler than this. So hopping back to the beginning, we've got three main chunks here. We've got, and I'm gonna close the sidebar there for a second so we can see this a little better. We've got our variables, kind of root level object. Those are variables. I know it's crazy. We've got different builders here. We only have one right now because we're just going to build a DigitalOcean snapshot. And this is the only thing that would be required if we're building a template. We just need to have a single builder. This is what we're telling Packer that we want to build. So if we wanted to, I could strip away this whole provisioners block, which is just a list of commands, a list of provisioners that get run after, or I guess while the snapshot is getting created. We'll hop into this for in a second. You can see that it's spinning up Ansible here. So we've got three provisioners there, a shell provisioner, an Ansible local provisioner, and a shell provisioner. So Packer is the thing that's going to start Ansible. We're never actually going to run an Ansible command. But going back to this builder segment, which uses variables, we're saying that we want to build this is a DigitalOcean builder. We've got our root SSH username, and then we've got these variables here. In Packer, this is how you define variables, using this user command here. And then you're passing in the variable name. This refers to a user-defined variable, which is what is referring up here to these variables. You can only use environment variables, which is what this env is right here, when you're defining variables in this root level object. So I can't, ideally I would have been able to cut down on these variables and just use them straight in here, but Packer wouldn't let me do that, which is okay. So we've got some default variables here. I've got environment variables, which I'm having them pulled in through a .env file, which has my DigitalOcean token in it, so I won't be showing that file. But I've got an example, which is the exact same, just without the token. You can see the token, it's just not there yet. So this is the actual environment file that's going to get run with all of our commands. And I've got a make file doing that. We'll show that. It's pretty simple. Hopping back to Packer here, to our template. So we've got our API token that's required by the DigitalOcean builder. We've got our image, which is just hard-coded here, Ubuntu, or hard-coded in the variable. We've got our region set by the environment variable, droplet size set by the environment variable, and the droplet name, which I think is I have it set to staging right now. None of those are sensitive information. I just wanted to be able to kind of change it on the fly. The token is really the only piece of sensitive information. And that's the only piece of required information to create a DigitalOcean snapshot. We could have built this whole template in, what is that, 10-ish lines, something like that. And that would be a nice template, just with the base Ubuntu image or something. But let's actually add some provisioners here. And these are all related to Ansible. So the first thing we're going to do, there's two ways you can run Ansible with Packer. You can run it remotely or you can run it locally. I personally don't. There is a difference. Running it remotely is the normal way you use Ansible, where you're running it on one machine, like your computer here, and you're controlling nodes, via SSH. Typically, you can have password access to. Ansible local is a little bit different. It actually is going to install Ansible on the server that you're running with Packer, and it's going to run it specifically locally. So that's what we're doing here. I would imagine this, from a developer perspective, this may be a little bit more secure, but honestly, as I was going through a blog post, they did Ansible local, and that's what we're doing here. I could have rewritten this using the other Ansible package. So this first script right here, because we're actually going to be running Ansible on the server, the image that we're creating itself, Ansible has to be installed, and Ansible local doesn't install it for you. So this first script, Ansible, let's hop in here. It's simple. Both of them are simple, and it's just prepping the server to install Ansible. Now you'll notice that I have the -y flags everywhere. Does anyone know why I have the -y flags or what they're actually doing? Exactly. Boom. We have the -y flags because this is all automated, and if we get prompted for a question, that breaks the automation. So the -y flags are specifying yes. We're just saying yes to everything. Yes to everything. So we're updating and upgrading our packages on the server. We're prepping the Ansible repository, updating again, and then we're installing the actual package. So we've got Ansible installed by the time that we get to the Ansible provisioners. They just run in order here. Now, with Ansible, the most prominent way you use Ansible, you don't have to do it this way, but would be using a playbook file. And that's what we're going to hop into in a second. In our playbook file, we've got our playbook broken up by roles. Let's just hop in Ansible, and then we'll head back to this. So when we get to this point in the provisioner, and we're gonna run this in a second. I just want to get to the explanations first. When we get to Ansible, we're giving it our playbook file, which is linking to this file right here, this site YAML. Ansible deals with YAML, so if you know YAML, if you don't, it's pretty easy to learn, but it's using something that you're familiar with. So we've got just the name. We're just going to install Git, MySQL, Nginx, and projects, which our projects is going to be Growler Friday. We've got everything broken up into roles. Roles in Ansible are neat. They're kind of just little modular chunks, so you can group your tasks together. You can group handlers together. If you don't know what either of those mean, don't worry, because we're going to get into it. But this looks nice and clean, and what it's doing is, for the Git role, for example, we'll hop back to what hosts mean in a second. You can see I've got a directory here called roles. Inside there's a directory called tasks, which my editor is not making super clear, but you can see right there we're in a directory called tasks. And it's going to run all the tasks in this file right here, auto-magically. It's a very complex task, installing Git. Hopping back to site here. We're using Ansible in a slightly unique way here. A lot of the ways to use Ansible is to manage a bunch of remote nodes that you can group together, like in different groups, like development, production, etc. We're specifically running this on one node, and it's the node that we're spinning up on the fly. So we're just setting the default hosts to all. You would normally pass in a host file, an inventory file is what it's called, that says, these are all the IP addresses of the nodes that I want to manage right now. These are how they're grouped together. We don't have to do that because we're specifically just running Ansible on the server that we're configuring. But the nice thing about specifying all hosts is that it will, by default, look at our variables file here called all. In Ansible, you can specify variables, and the name of the, by default, group vars is what Ansible is going to look into for variables, and the name of the variables files, which is all, is how you know. These will set the variables for whatever host you're trying to run. So we're running all hosts, so it's going to look at a variable file called all, which just some simple variables, mostly just for show there. Okay, hopping back to our playbook file. So we've got roles for Git, MySQL. We don't actually need MySQL. That was just kind of a fun little thing that I wanted to show using templates and everything. We do need Nginx. And then we've got our Growler Friday role, which is how we're going to set up that project. So let's go in order here, and this will be quick. We've got our Git tasks. Super simple. Ansible runs everything using modules. So this right here is the apt module, which is how we install things. We're saying we want Git, so we're going to install the Git package, and it's going to be present, meaning it exists. We could specify it as absent, and that would mean that we're uninstalling it. And the name here is just so that you can see the actual command running on the command line. I know I'm preaching to the choir here a lot, but if anyone's never used Ansible, I think this is super cool to see. Okay, so we've got Git. I think the next thing was MySQL, which we're not even using. But you can see here we've got this broken out into handlers, tasks, and templates. By default, tasks are going to get run. We're installing MySQL. We've got a nice with items here, which will run the module multiple times based on whatever our item is here. And then you can see we're using the item here as this variable. This is one of the cool things that I really like about Ansible. I imagine this is SCPing things on the fly, but you can actually copy local templates here, or wherever you're running Ansible, to the server itself. So we have this templates directory here, and templates by default get built using the Jinja templating system. So we can actually put variables in here. So right here we've got bracket MySQL port. That's actually going to pull in our variable from the all group vars file and run it and put it in here. So then when we actually are saying where we want it to go, my.cnf, it's going to be the build file, and it's not going to have those brackets in there. Then we're running a handler whenever MySQL gets, whenever we are setting the new MySQL config, that restarts MySQL. So that by default is going to run a handler in here, which Ansible knows automatically where to grab, and it's going to restart MySQL. And then, bam, we're just gonna start it there as well. Hopping on down, Nginx. I think this one's pretty simple too. We're just gonna install Nginx. We're gonna remove the default config. So you can see here we're using the file module, and we're saying state equals absent, so we're removing a file. And then we're doing the template system again. So we're copying over a file in our templates directory here, just a default Nginx conf. This one does not have any Jinja configuration, so it's just a normal file. And we're just putting that on the server. So this sets up Nginx, and then our last group of tasks is going to be Growler Friday, which is how we're going to set up this project. So at this point, we've got Git installed, we've got Nginx installed and configured. We just need to actually get the Growler Friday project on the server, and then create an Nginx. I don't know what you would call the conf file in the sites enabled and sites available directories. So we're doing just that. We're going to clone the project down with GitHub. This is just on my personal GitHub, and we're putting it in the normal place you would find an HTML project on a server. We're going to be running an Ubuntu server, so I'm sure the destinations probably change based on what you're running, the usual destinations. Let me close the sidebar there. We're copying the Growler Friday configuration, which is our Nginx configuration, to the sites available directory, which is where you would put all of your configurations for Nginx, and then you create a symlink for them in the sites enabled directory. And that's how Nginx is going to know where to spin up the site. I'm, again, probably preaching to the choir here, but we're going to get to the fun stuff here in a second. So this is what Ansible is doing. It's nothing crazy, but it's all automated. So let's actually build this snapshot. And the way we're going to do that, I'm going to close this to make it a little easier to read. We could just hop inside of Packer here and run Packer build, and it's going to automatically find template JSON. That's all we need to do. But I built a make file to do that, and just to show you that's all it's doing. This is the thing we're going to run in here. It's going to cd into Packer, run Packer build template JSON, and then cd back. But I've got an environment file, which I only want to run with the scripts themselves. I don't want to source my environment file. So that I only want the environment variables to be accessible while running the script. So that's what this little tool is doing up here. It's including my environment file. So that's why we're running this with a make file. If anyone thinks make files are too old and too uncool, then think again, because they're bomb. Okay, so let's hop over here. So I'm just going to run make Packer build, and you can see this is what gets run right now. So we're spinning up a droplet, and if I hop over to my DigitalOcean droplets, we call this droplet staging. Because my original thought behind this was I want to scaffold out my entire production server with using code first. You can see we're actually spinning up a staging server. So the way Packer, you may have thought Packer is not going to create anything because it's not meant to deploy things. It's meant to create images. So why do we have a droplet running? Well, to actually build a snapshot for DigitalOcean, we have to build the droplet first, then take the snapshot, and then Packer is going to spin it all down. So at the end of all this, we're going to have a nice snapshot for DigitalOcean. This is nothing that I didn't have to configure this specifically. This is just because we're using the Packer DigitalOcean builder. So if I hop over here to snapshots, it's going to be empty right now. But after this whole thing runs, you'll see we will have something here. So we're waiting here. There's going to be a little bit of downtime here. So I've got one joke that's going to take a chunk of time. But would anyone else like a shot at getting a nice shot? If you're watching on Twitch, some of the jokes may be too long. I won't repeat them. But everyone here will at least get to hear all of our nonsense jokes. Okay. Anybody? Yes, Shane. How long does the loop run? I don't know. No. The answer was for a while. I can repeat that one. Also, I'd like to say, if things just go haywire here, and if we're not able to do anything, I've got the whole process screencasted as a video right here. So if all heck just breaks loose, we can run that. So we'll give this thing some time.
Is that joke worthy of a t-shirt?
Oh, it is. Yeah. Do you already have a shirt, Ching? Do you already have one of these shirts? This is our nice Ferris. Oh, this is the Ferris wheel district. You don't have this one? Okay. Wear it with pride. Wear it with pride. Ah. Okay. So our droplet was created. Things aren't done yet, but the droplet is created. And we can see that Packer, this probably take a couple more minutes. We're connected to SSH. So now Ansible is running. I'm sorry, Ansible's not running yet. This is the first provisioner that's installing. It's updating everything, and then we're going to install Ansible. So I'm not going to stop the logs here. You'll just have to see it as they go. But when we get to the actual Ansible configuration, which is going to get run on this image because it was that second provisioner, you'll see all that running. If you're familiar with Ansible, then you'll see all the familiar logs. One of the nice tools about Ansible, or nice things about Ansible, is that if you run the same playbook multiple times, Ansible actually won't run the tasks unless they've changed. So if I am copying down, like for example, I'm gonna, I'll show it after this. But where we're doing a git clone of that Growler Friday repo, which is a beautiful website. Okay, so we're at Ansible now. This probably looks a little familiar. If we were to reclone the library, the GitHub repository, and it already existed, Ansible's not going to do that. It's going to say nothing was changed. We're installing MySQL here. Okay. I've got a good joke then, which we can listen to as we see the logs. So a man is in a hot air balloon, and he's lost. He doesn't know where he's going. So he kind of goes down a little bit to see if he can find someone to tell him where he is. He has no idea where he is. And he sees someone on the ground, and he yells down and says, "Hey, sir, can you tell me where I am?" And the man on the ground says, "Yes, you're in a hot air balloon in the sky." And the man in the air balloon says, "You must be in IT." And the guy on the ground says, "Yes, I am. How did you know?" And man in the airplane, in the hot air balloon says, "Well, everything you've told me is absolutely correct, but it's of no use to anyone." So the man on the ground says, "You must be in management." And the man in the balloon says, "Yes, how did you know?" And the one on the ground says, "You're completely lost, and you have no idea where you're going, and you expect me to help. You're in the exact same situation as you were before, but now it's my fault." And there's kind of a side joke where all these events took place in Redmond, Washington, Microsoft headquarters. That was good timing. We're getting done here. So all we did here, we're shutting down the droplet. So it's probably still up right now. Okay, so it's still up. It's shutting down. We're taking the snapshot, and then we'll shut down the droplet. So it'll still take about 10 seconds or so. But what's going to happen here is At the end of all of this, like I said, we're going to have a snapshot that will be only on my DigitalOcean account. That's going to return an ID to that snapshot, which is what Terraform is going to need to spin up the actual droplet. So this droplet's not going to be our real droplet. This was just the one that we spin up to take the snapshot. It's going to go bye-bye in a second. Then we're going to use Terraform to actually spin up the real deal thing. And we can actually get into that while this is shutting down. We don't need to wait for this, but I'll show you the snapshot whenever that comes up. So now we're getting into Terraform here. I should mention that Packer and Terraform are both tools built by the same company called HashiCorp. They built some very cool tools. Vagrant is probably their flagship product. A lot of cool dev tools. HashiCorp is not very old. I think they were started in 2012 or 2013, one or the other. But they've done a phenomenal job of doing some pretty awesome libraries in such a short time. I think they're named after the founder, someone, Hashi. Anyway, history of HashiCorp. With Terraform, let's see if this thing is done yet. No, not done. With Terraform, the default way we write Terraform files is using this .tf extension. It stands for Terraform. It's kind of its own syntax. I'm not sure if it's HashiCorp syntax. They've got other tools that you can run in their own syntax as well. You can build them. You can build these files using JSON as well. There may be other languages you can use too. We're just going to use the Terraform script right now. And what we're doing here, just like with Packer, we're defining a lot of variables. And then the big thing at the bottom here is that we're saying we have a provider for DigitalOcean, and that's what we're actually going to be spinning up our droplet. And the provider requires an argument called a token, which is our DigitalOcean token. We need our token to do anything with DigitalOcean. And then Terraform is going to look for look in this staging TF file. This .tf state is not important. That's just whenever you run it, those get created. They're little history files. Not important. But the staging file is. And this one is where we're actually going to be spinning up our droplets. So we're telling Terraform that we are wanting to create a resource. We're creating a DigitalOcean droplet, which is a valid, if you look at the docs, this type of a droplet is a valid thing for the DigitalOcean provider. And we're going to call this droplet staging. And then inside here is all the configuration. So all these var dot whatevers, those are getting pulled in because we specified them here in provider, but you might be wondering, wait a minute, they're all empty. How are we getting any of these variables? So kind of like with Packer, we're using environment variables. In Packer, we explicitly had to define, hey, I want to pull in this environment variable. Terraform is not like that, which is kind of cool and kind of annoying at the same time. Because if we look at the environment example, again, which is an exact replica of the end file, just with a different token and a different SSH fingerprint, Terraform will load in variables automatically to your scripts if they're prefixed with tf_var_. So I had the dilemma of, do I want to rename all my environment variables to tf_var if I'm using both Packer and Terraform? And I thought, no, I'm just going to create the actual environment variables and then just set Terraform-specific environment variables to link directly to them. So that's why this file looks obnoxious. It's not obnoxious, we're 18 lines, but it could have been, 7 lines or so. So that's how Terraform works with environment variables. And there is a priority, so we're hopping back to provider. If we wanted to override the variable that gets brought in from our environment, that gets we can override that here, and that will override that by default. If we have a variable that's missing, so like for example, droplet image was not defined in our example because that's what we're going to be providing. We have to give it the ID of the snapshot we're creating. Terraform will actually prompt us for this. Hopping back to staging here. More or less similar configuration to Packer. We are saying we want the droplet to exist in this region. We want it to be this size. We're adding an SSH key to it. And then how are we going to connect to this? Well, we're going to connect with it with the root user using SSH. Here's the path to our private key, which is a variable. And then we've got a timeout set there. It's surprisingly simple. And if you've never used Terraform or Packer before, I think this is really empowering to see how little configuration we're doing here for something powerful. So at this point, we should be done. Okay, so our snapshot was created. This is the important thing right here, that ID, because nowhere on DigitalOcean does it actually give you the ID of the snapshot. So if we, you can use their API to get it, which is just a pain. Okay, so you can see a droplet got deleted, which it says it was doing, destroying the droplet. But in our images, we will have a snapshot called Packer something something. Come on, Sammy, swim. Sammy the shark is the avatar for DigitalOcean. So it was created 6 minutes ago, 1.5 gigs, not bad. So we're actually going to use this. So to run Terraform, again, I'm going to run a make command. We'll hop in so you can see what that is. It's very simple as well. We're just seeding into the Terraform directory, running Terraform apply, and then seeding back to where we currently are. It's a good practice to run Terraform plan beforehand, which will just verify, and here we can actually do it. Plan is the same thing as apply, but it's like a dry run. It won't actually run the thing. So you can see I'm getting prompted for the droplet image because it was never actually provided as a variable. So the last attempt to get that is to just prompt you for it, which is what I want, because we're going to provide that value now. So let this scroll up a little bit. You can see Terraform is going to be performing this stuff. It's going to be creating a DigitalOcean droplet called staging. A lot of these values are computed, but you can see we are, the size is this right here, which is the name of the 1 gigabyte droplet, the $5 a month one. It's going to add one of these, etc., but then it's saying we're not actually going to run it now. So to actually run it, let's run Terraform apply. You can see the script it's running right up here. It's just Terraform apply. Let's copy that snapshot ID in there. And it's saying the same thing, but now we have the prompt for, do you actually want to do this thing? So we're going to run yes. We're going to create a droplet. And this doesn't take a ton of time. I want to say anywhere from 30 seconds to a minute. And Terraform will give us some live updates of how long it's taken. So if we refresh, if we go to our droplets page, this will actually be creating a droplet called staging. In hindsight, I probably should have called the Packer droplet the Packer droplet and the Terraform droplet something different, so you kind of were able to see it, but I just called both of them staging. So this will get created. And I'm out of jokes. I got one good joke. It's a short one. I gave this joke at the Python group last Wednesday, so if you were there, then you heard this magnificent joke. But so a SQL query walks into a bar, walks up to 2 tables and says, "Can I join you?" I'll be here all day. All right, and our droplet was created. Look at that. Okay, so we want to have this IP address. So this is the one that you can see if I refresh. This one's not getting deleted. This is the one that stays. So we can actually SSH into this. It's a new host, so yes, we want to accept that. And bam, we are here. And we can actually go to the HTML directory here, and we can see, bam, there's a Growler Friday project there. We can go to like the Nginx sites enabled thing and see, okay, there's our Growler Friday conf file that is pointing to the sites enabled actual conf. So this is Ansible that did all this logic here. So we've got a server up, and it's configured how we want it to. So how are we actually going to test to see if Growler Friday is running right now, but how do we actually know? If we go to growlerfriday.com, it's going to load DNS. So what can we do here? Well, we're going to mess with the hosts file. I've got an alias for this because I don't want to type it in every time. If you're not familiar with how the host file works, we'll show you here in a second. But before we see that, you're going to see that you can actually change the prompt for your terminal will ask you for your password. Normally it just says like password needed, etc. I've changed mine, and it's not the most family friendly prompt. So let's just do that. It's just an exported environment setting. So the way the host file works is we can change our local DNS. This is the first stop that any website will go to, or any network utility will use to figure out where to go for a website. So we can point growlerfriday.com at our new droplet right now, and we're going to save that. Now, I'm going to bring up an incognito mode so we don't have any caching. And if we load up growlerfriday.com, by default, Growler Friday will try to, this will probably still be cached if I go to here. It'll automatically try to redirect me to the HTTPS one on the live site. But right here, because I'm not cached here, you can see it does not point me to the HTTPS version because my server does not have any HTTPS set up. This is actually running on the server itself, and it's Friday, so let's go celebrate Growler Friday. again, to prove that this worked and that I'm not just lying about it all, let's edit the host file again, and let's just change this to 6. So it's pointing to a completely different IP now. I'm going to close that just so we make sure we're not cached. And bam, it doesn't work. So we can prove that pointing granularfriday.com to our droplet that we just spun up with code actually worked 100%. Let's get a round of applause for that. That worked. We did it. Okay. So that's the big demo with how you can use Ansible, Packer, and Terraform to do all this cool stuff right here. And that's more or less it. But if you want to learn more, again, I mentioned that I really didn't know any of these tools until about a month ago. So I'm by no means an expert. So you can try to ask me, but honestly, just don't ask. Probably better not ask me. There are other people that I would recommend you talk to these tools specifically. And I'm sure a lot of people here know about these tools, but I know John Yarbor, he's in this building, he's got an office. I've asked him a lot of questions about Ansible. He runs a local company called Nodecraft. It's super awesome. You can talk to him about that, but he's on Twitter. Ask him about Ansible. About Packer, ask Paul Dawson, who's not here, but he gave the talk last month about Packer. So talk to him about that. And then Terraform, I know there's Clayton and Mike who kind of co-run this group with Mike. I've heard them talk about Terraform on more than one occasion, so if you have questions about Terraform, ask them. And I know we've got Jeff French in the back here, who's the DevOps king in my head, so he probably knows about everything. But that's all I got for today. So I hope you learned something. I hope more than anything, I hope I inspired you to want to learn more about these things, because as you can see, the Ansible piece was a good chunk of configuration, but that's just specific to what your needs are. The Packer and Terraform part, it's pretty simple, honestly. So I hope I encourage you to, if you haven't messed with these, to mess with them. And if you have messed with them, then give a talk that improves on what I've started here. So that's all I got. You can find me on the Code Boss on Twitter. I run a website called thesociety.org. It's my little blog site. But that's all I got. Thanks a bunch.